In November 2006, Dr. Cecil Rohrbeck and Dr. Bob Bourne assembled an international team of volunteers, and under the banner Operation Walk, flew to Antigua, Guatemala to perform hip and knee replacements for a population with virtually no access to procedures that are taken for granted throughout North America. With extraordinary support from Smith & Nephew and other corporate supporters, Operation Walk was able to perform 65 life-changing joint replacements in 4 days, a number that represents 1/3 of the total such procedures done in the entire country of 16 million in 1 year. The experience was profound for the Operation Walk team, and a commitment was made to return the next year to continue the work where the need was so great. For Operation Walk Guatemala 2007, Smith & Nephew once again provided mission-critical support to the team, donating all implants and instrumentation. With that industry support, this year's mission arrived in Antigua to face a repeat of the previous year's overwhelming need. Operation Walk's international surgical teams from Ohio, Arizona, Texas, Canada, Spain, and the United Kingdom began the task of determining who they would be able to help over the 4 days of procedures. The word had spread around Guatemala about the life-changing work that was done last year.
Jose Rafael Vides.
And people who have lived with daily pain and handicapped mobility for years traveled from all over the country in the hopes of being among this year's lucky individuals to receive a new lease on life. 53-year-old Emmanuel has been on crutches for 8 years, suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, and is hoping to have his knees replaced by the Operation Walk team.
I've been having knee and hip pain for over 27 years, but I'm here today so I can have surgery to have a permanent solution. They did another x-ray of my hips, and they actually told me that my hips were more of the problem than my knees. So they're going to operate on my hips first, and then later we're going to see how it goes and maybe my knees afterwards.
After hours of assessments, the team assembled to make the selections and immediately began to deliver on the hopes of those that had traveled far for the chance of much-needed orthopedic care.
Asked to have this break forward, she lost her cartilage space. I can't tell if this is loose. I'm really concerned about the bone stock, paper thin.
Over the next few days, 4 operating rooms were used by the surgical teams to perform procedures on more than 50 patients. The decision to return to Hermano Pedro Hospital was made because there was an obvious overwhelming need throughout the country of Guatemala for joint replacement procedures. But there was also important infrastructure support for the hospital that a returning mission could provide. Beyond the replacement procedures, a donor stepped forward to fund the installation of air conditioning for the hospital's ORs, as well as a set of patient monitors. Upgrades to the facility that would extend ongoing benefits long after Operation Walk's mission was complete. The need in such a poor country as this is profound. A large percentage of the population has little economic access to the luxury of transportation. So physical mobility is all important for their ability to support themselves and their families with the very basic needs of daily living. This heightened need for mobility is set in a country where access to orthopedic care is virtually non-existent. The success of a medical mission of this type is largely dependent on intense advanced planning. During the year leading up to the mission, a care plan and logistical needs to drive a total turnkey team approach were developed. All supplies and labor would be brought to Guatemala to ensure that patients would receive the highest predictable and planned level of care. To this end, an extremely experienced group of professionals was assembled: surgeons, internists, anesthesiologists, physiotherapists, support staff, and a contingent of registered nurses that made up more than half the team. The care plan incorporated preoperative patient assessment, a multi-suite surgical plan, and post-operative ward care, including nursing care, pain management, mobilization, and rehab education for patients and families, and a discharge plan, all executed in an intense 5-day period for more than 60 patients. Operation Walk, with its industry supporters, was able to perform almost 70 joint replacements on this mission, and the extent that many lives were to instantly change was evident as patients began to walk and exercise very shortly after surgery.
He had polio on the other leg, so both legs were short, and so we lengthened up his left leg equal to his right leg and put his hip back where it was supposed to be, and he's walking the first day after surgery.
So that we can move the knee.
A large part of the commitment of Operation Walk is to provide education. And so, during the week, the team's surgeons, nurses, and physiotherapists held classes for the local hospital staff.
Pass that around so you can see what it feels like.
And the surgeons traveled to Guatemala City to provide lectures at the University Medical School. And during the week's surgeries, Guatemalan medical students and residents benefited from access to a rare, intense week of learning opportunities. The Operation Walk team knows that their volunteer mission is just a few short days of the year, but the effect on so many lives is lifelong. Emmanuel is now just 24 hours post-surgery.
Instead of doing both his knee replacement surgeries, we decided to replace both his hips, which were severely diseased from his rheumatoid arthritis.
At only 53 years old, Emmanuel is now up and walking with very little pain with his new hips.
This is the x-ray on the gentleman we did yesterday who had the revision done. There's the part that we took out of this gentleman that he had put in 3 years ago, and it really didn't function for him and he was having tremendous pain. So we had to remove it and revise it.
The industry support and volunteer efforts are generous gifts with profound rewards. Operation Walk is making a difference in Guatemala, and the combination of education, infrastructure support, and patient procedures is a commitment that they are once again making for a return in November 2008 to continue the cause. We want to sincerely thank our supporters for this year's mission, and along with many Guatemalans who will receive these life-changing procedures, invite you to team up with us for Mission 2008. Without the substantial support of Smith & Nephew and these distributors, Operation Walk Guatemala would not have been possible.